everyone, it's Julie at the Paper Bag Lady 1. I have two albums to show you today. I don't usually film them since I make so many of them. However, I was pretty delighted with both of these. They just really came together nicely for me and I was just really pleased with them, so I thought that I would share. The first one I finished yesterday is a vintage album, and I'm sorry, my tripod is very short, so it's very hard to see the entire page since this is an 8x8 album at one time, but we will make do with what we have. So the first album is made with, I believe it's a K & Company paper called Vintage Findings, a couple years old maybe, I'm not sure. I have a lot of it. I got it at a good price and I like it because it's vintage, so I used that. So that is the paper throughout the album. You will also see throughout the album a lot of these crocheted pieces from all the different crocheted linens and doilies that I find and cut apart. And on most of them you will find old buttons. Some of them, like this one right here, has the original thread still in it, and then these I just put some twine or jute or whatever in, and then there are also some fancier vintage buttons on here. This trim right here is some rickrack I got probably at a thrift store, and then this is a vintage postcard that I'm sure I got from my postcard guy. I think it's a birthday card, but I just covered up the birthday sentiment. So, like I said, throughout you will find these crocheted things, so I don't think I need to explain them every time. You know where they came from. I will say that this blue right here was a piece of cotton crocheted lace from my stash that I just turned into a flower. And this, you'll sometimes see these throughout that look like fabric. They're just cut with the Tim Holtz Tattered Florals die. This first layout has the photo mat here. Right here we have some vintage cigar labels that I picked up at a thrift store. And here you can see the tab sticking out from a index card file box thing. And here's a coffee dyed tag at the top. And over here on this side we have a pocket with a mat that pulls out and another one of the index cards. More trim, and then I'm not sure if the camera will focus on this, but this right here is a label from a drugstore, vintage label that I don't remember for sure where I got. I believe it was an antique mall, but I'm not positive. I think this first layout is probably my least favorite. I don't know why. Often the first one is. I think maybe because I do it first. I don't know. Anyway, and the second page. This right here, these labels, I think are labels for on canning jars. I bought them at a flea market. No, I'm sorry, an antique mall in Columbia a couple years ago. They had strawberry and grape and pear and peach and things like that, and I just think they're really cool. They don't have their stick anymore. I don't think I had to glue it down. Another coffee dye tag. This is a cap from a milk bottle. I picked that up this past weekend while I was out and about thrifting. And then this ribbon here, this trim was gotten at a flea market as vintage, and then I just took some green seam binding and wove it through. On this side we have another pocket with the pull-out pieces. Here's a green stamp page from a green stamp book, and these here are the cigarette coupons, I think, that you would get with cigarettes a long time ago, and you collected them and exchanged them for things much like green stamps. I bought a whole box of them once at an antique mall. And again, this trim down here is just the lace that I wove this other green trim through. It didn't come that way. On this layout, we have more of a music theme. This and this right here are old flashcards, music flashcards. This is a trim I got at my fabric outlet. Here's a pretty cool vintage blue button. I don't know how clear that's going to come in. There's another one down here, and another one of the Tattered Florals. This page, this layout is probably my favorite. It's more of a sewing theme, which is one of my favorites. Here we have some vintage measuring tape that I got this weekend at the flea market. Here's an old seamstress tag in the back, another coffee dyed tag, and I am not certain what this is. I assume it's a size for something. I don't know for positive. I have a a little pile of these things, and they all have different numbers on them. But it looked cool, so I used it. And down here as a flower center is a little vintage bobbin. It's a paper bobbin with the thread, and I got that also at my local fabric outlet. Another pull-out page here with another tag, some vintage, a card with hooks and eyes, and then some vintage wrapping from some rickrack, and then another one of these little bobbins down here. And then the last layout, we have a vintage bingo card, and then with the flowers I used the little bingo markers and then the little call numbers from the game. And over here on the other side, the last pocket, another bingo card, and again some more of these. And then these little green game, they're from a game, I think it was called Dig. I'm not positive if that was it. If so, it was actually had a lot of alphabet cards, and that's why I got it, because I like the little letters, but it had these little green game pieces in too, and then some more trim that I picked up at various places. So that is my first rather vintage looking album. And my second one is as different can be, I think. Here we have a pastel theme, and I called this one Delight simply because I was delighted when I was finished with it. And this is using a Colorblock paper pad. I don't know the name of it, but that is the paper throughout it. You'll find a lot of punched edges in here. This one was a Martha Stewart punch, I believe. Throughout you also see all these embellishments, which are different lace appliques that I buy at my local fabric outlet. And then these, I cut them apart. This one is mainly intact. There was some more up here that I cut off, and I think a large flower down here. But these are smaller pieces that came from various ones, and I cut them apart. These green flowers with the little centers, I believe, are Recollections, and then all the other little flowers in here are Prima. And the centers I got at AC Moore, which is a local craft store here in Pennsylvania. I know it's not all over the place, but they're just little pearl centers. And then this trim here I got at my local fabric outlet. And throughout you just see more of the same, more of the white applique. This is a journaling spot. I believe it's an autumn leaves journaling spot, and then I just used the Cricut to cut out that little flower around. The white lace here is from my stash. On this side, some more of the applique and the white lace. This right here is from Prima packaging that I thought was really pretty, and the colors worked well, to sort of use as a journal spot. The next page, more Prima, more appliques. This right here along the edge, and there's one down on the bottom here, is also Prima packaging. Some trim that I got at who knows where. I get it all sorts of places. The antique mall, the thrift store. This one I know I got at a thrift store, that white lace. I really need a higher tripod. The next layout, more lace, appliques. This right here is a journaling tag from a tag pad that was a K & Company line. I think it was Hopscotch was the paper line. I used all the paper, but I have a lot of the tags left. More lace. Oh, and this right here, and this punched right here, whoops, you can see, that is packaging from, I think, a pack of K & Company stickers. It was pretty, so I saved it. Go, more applique, more Prima packaging, some vintage trim. Again, more of the same. I said I tend to follow through on my albums. If I use embellishments on one page, I tend to use a lot of the same on all of the pages. I kind of like a flow. I'm not a big mishmash kind of person. So here's my last layout. My last double layout, more appliques and flowers, and the same thing here. So very different from the first album, but I was just really pleased with the way this one worked out. I know I've sent a couple people some of these appliques and they have been hesitant to think about cutting them apart. So I kind of wanted to show how you can cut them apart and they can still work, because all of them that you've seen in here are all cut up. Not one of them is the entire applique. So they do work very well as pieces. So anyway, those are my two newest albums. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at them, as I know I certainly enjoyed making them. I hope everybody has a good evening, and thanks for watching. Bye.